Hello everyone. This is going to be a quick video on how to get Python 3 installed on your machines. Python is freely available for pretty much every system, so you can install it on Windows, Linux, Mac, no problems at all. The one system that it does not really work too well with is Chromebooks. So if you are using a Chromebook, there are some workarounds to get Python 3 installed, but it can be a little bit more painful than what it's worth. So if you do run a Chromebook, please let me know and we can try to find a different solution for that. For those of you who are running Mac, Linux, or Windows specifically, Python can be downloaded from python.org. Linux and Mac, you guys will be mostly installing this through the command line. So please bear with me on that. So if you're running Windows, you'll want to go to Downloads, and the current version of Python right now is Python 3.7.2. But if that happens to change in the time that this video is recorded, anything above Python 3.5 will work for this class. So you want to download that, save it, okay? And then you're simply going to be running the executable. Okay. Now there's a few things that you want to check here before you move forward. Okay. Now don't just go straight through it and install now. One of the big things that you want to check before you continue here is this add Python 3.7 to path. So adding Python to the path will allow you to execute Python through the command line. Okay? And this helps your computer also recognize that Python is installed as well. So this is something that's very important, and I'll actually show you how to do this by hand later as well. With that, you'll want to hit Customize Installation. And when you hit Customize, you want to make sure all of these boxes are ticked. So documentation, pip, idle, Python test suite, PyLauncher, and install for all users. If you happen to not be an administrator for your machine, you don't have to worry necessarily too much about for all users, but you can have that selected by default. Okay. Advanced stuff here, you really don't have to do a whole lot with these checkboxes up here. You can check this install for all users if you would like, and create shortcuts. You do want to associate the files with Python, add Python to environment variables. That is also very, very important. But you don't need precompile standard library, download debugging tools, or anything like that. But the big thing that you want to do is this customize install location. Right? The reason for this is the default location where Python is installed is in the app data in your user folder, and this tends to be a bit of a headache when we go through to install additional Python packages. So the easiest way to, or the best way to get Python installed is if you go to, click Browse here, and then you go to this PC, and then you'll scroll down and find your C drive or wherever you have that located. And then you'll want to, just directly inside of the C drive, you'll want to click Make New Folder, and name that folder Python 3.7. Okay? And this will be the folder where you want to install Python to. And what this helps with, let me browse back to that folder. It didn't click. So what this helps with here is when you go to install Python packages, they're generally speaking a little bit easier to install, and it's much easier to find this Python 3.7 folder inside of your C drive versus trying to dig through your user data in the app data folder. Okay. So install this on C, and then make a new folder called Python 3.7, or whichever version you're actually installing. You can actually see that I have two other older versions of Python already installed. And just click OK, and then you should see that new path here in the custom install location box. So after that, you just click Install, click Yes for administrator privileges if that pops up. So we'll sit here and wait for a second. All right. So now that that is installed, we can just close this install window here. Okay. And to test if your Python installation is working properly, you want to click down here in the bottom left-hand corner to search your computer, and you want to type in CMD. This will open up a command prompt. If you're familiar with this as well, you can also use PowerShell for this either way. Okay. Now, what you'll want to type here is Python Python space -- version. Okay. And now that should come up with the version that you have already installed. And so you can see here we have Python 3.7.2 that shows up. You can see now that Python 3.7.2 shows up when I type Python -- version. Okay. That means that Python is correctly installed. Now, also if I type Python, I actually get a Python interpreter. If I type Python, I also get a Python interpreter opened up where I can actually start typing Python commands. Okay. Now we won't really worry about doing the working with this quite yet. We'll talk about that in class. But as long as you can type these two things into the command line, your Python has been installed properly. So let me exit the interpreter there. Now the other program that we're going to be using is called Jupyter. Okay. Now, if you were unable to do Python -- version or just Python, or it came up with the incorrect version of Python, your installation didn't go as planned. So the easy way to modify this here is you want to type in path inside of your search bar there, and you should see edit the system environment variables up here. So you want to click that, edit system environment variables, and you'll get up into the system properties window. Okay. In the bottom right-hand corner, you'll want to click environment variables, so click that. Okay. And now we'll want to browse down here into the system variables, not anything with the variables for the user, but you want to go down here to the system variables and you want to find path. Okay. And you'll want to click edit for that. Okay. And then in here, you'll want to make sure that the Python 3.7 is installed here. Okay. And so, and generally speaking, you don't need this. Let me actually delete my older versions here. So you're going to want to click New, Browse, and then you're going to scroll or go to your C drive or wherever you installed Python 3.7, and then click on that folder and press OK. Now that path should show up here as an environment variable or in the path here. Then we want to add one more. So you want to click New again and then Browse. And then you're going to browse to the same location. So this PC, C, and Python 3.7. And then scripts. Okay? And so you should have Python 3.7 and Python 3.7 scripts added to your path variables here. And all you need to do is press OK again, and press OK to close that. Now, you're going to have to close out the command prompt again to refresh it. So just close the command prompt, open up a new one, and then you should be able to, again, type Python -- version with no problem. Okay. Likewise, what you can do here to also test to make sure your scripts is running, we're going to actually install another piece of software that is required for the class. Okay, so the software that we're actually going to install now is called Jupyter Notebook. Okay. Jupyter Notebook is what we're going to be using for all notes in the class, which helps us create dynamic notes so that you can actually go in and play with the code and modify it as embedded Python inside your notebook. So it's kind of a nice way to make interactive notes for the class. Okay? And we'll also be doing our lab exercises in Jupyter Notebook as well. Okay? Now, if you go to the install link here, it really pushes installing Anaconda. It says we strongly recommend installing Python on Jupyter using Anaconda. I do not recommend this. Okay? Do not install Anaconda. If you already have Anaconda installed, that is okay. But if you are doing a complete new installation, Anaconda is a prepackaged Python distribution, which is okay, but later on for this class, it will actually cause some more headaches for you. So just ignore this part here, installing Jupyter using Anaconda. So what we want to do here is install Jupyter using pip. And this will work, this method will work with both basically all versions of Python, as well as Mac, Linux, and Windows. Okay? And depending on how you did your install, you may have to do Python 3. You may be able to do pip, but I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. So just showing you their homepage. You can come to this website for any of the Jupyter documentation if you want some extra tutorials apart from the ones that I give you. Okay? So let's go on and install this. Okay? So how to install this using pip? Well, if you did your path variables correctly by adding the Python 3.7 and the scripts path to your environment variable, to your path variable anyways, you should be able to type just pip. Okay? You could also type pip3, either one, pip or pip3, and then install. Okay? For this point, you may actually, for sake of consistency for Mac users, we're going to go ahead and just do pip3. But pip3 install Jupyter. Okay? And essentially now we're just going to sit here and let it do its thing, right? So this is going to download all the Python, all the packages, all of the files and things that are required for Jupyter Notebook to run. Okay? And this makes it pretty nice because all you have to do is type that simple command pip3 install Jupyter, and then it's going to take care of the rest. All right, so now that we have all of this installed, you don't need to really worry about upgrading your version of pip, although you can run this command if you'd like to upgrade pip. Okay, so to test that Jupyter Notebook is running properly, all we need to do is type the command Jupyter space notebook, and what this will do is actually start a background server that will run the notebook software. Okay? And it'll actually create a simple web server, so it'll actually pop open a web browser for you by default. So I'm going to type Jupyter Notebook there, give it a second to open, and there we go. Okay? And one of the things to pay attention to here is as you're working with Jupyter Notebook, this window must stay open while you are working with Jupyter. If you close this or press Control C actually kills the Jupyter Notebook server. But if you stop the server at any given point in time, the actual software here, the website, will stop working. Okay. And you'll also notice that the root directory that Jupyter Notebook opens in is whatever directory you were actually in when you ran the command. So I was in c/user/weser, so my home directory when I ran Jupyter Notebook. Okay? Now you'll need to change your directory if you want to go, if you want to store like your Python notes or your labs or stuff in a different location. But this is it. You'll run the same command on any system, so Windows, Mac, or Linux to get things to run. Okay? Now, let's for those of you who are working with Mac, and don't worry, I'll be including all of these links in a notebook for you to read or click on, so you don't have to actually type out all these URLs. But this website here, docs.python-guide.org, will give you some decent instructions on how to install Python for Mac. Now, I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you're installing Python on Mac, to install it using Homebrew. Okay? Homebrew is a great tool in Mac that acts kind of like a package manager or an installer for all sorts of things for Mac. So if you already have Homebrew installed, that's fantastic. If you do not, you can go to brew.sh, which looks like this here, and you can run these commands here to install, or run this command here to install Homebrew. Okay? You may have to walk through this tutorial here to modify your path variables. Okay? But all you need to actually do is just run those two commands. And then to install Python 3, you'll type brew space install space Python. Okay? And that would be it. Okay? So you should already have pip installed for you when you run brew install Python. Okay? But depending on what version of Mac you have or Linux you have, you may already have Python 2 installed. Okay? So it's a little bit tricky. Okay? So if you already have Python 2 installed, one way you can check to see how things are working, if you type Python -- version, just like we did before, and you can actually see this down here, Python -- version. If it shows that you have Python, if it comes up with Python 3, you're all good. Okay? If it does not, if it says Python 2, you may have to type Python 3 -- version to do the correct version. Okay? And this is very important as well, because Python 2 will not work for this class, right? We will be grading and running everything in Python 3. So if you run your program as Python 2, you're not going to get the same results when we actually grade. Okay, so do check this out by running Python -- version or Python 3 -- version to make sure which Python you have installing and working. Okay, if you have to type Python 3 -- version, when you run, or when you go to install Jupyter Notebook, because Homebrew does not install Jupyter Notebook for you, open up a terminal. Okay? And all of these commands on this page are ran inside of a terminal in Mac. So and same idea with Linux. Okay? But if you have to type Python 3 to get to your Python installation, you will also need to make sure you type pip 3 when you install Jupyter Notebook. So you type pip 3 pip 3 install Jupyter Notebook. With that, that should get everything installed for Jupyter Notebook and Python for both Windows and Mac. If you are on Linux, there are various different ways to install Python for Linux systems. Most of those involve similar ways, just like Homebrew. But different Linux distributions have different ways to install Python. So if you do happen to be running Linux and you need help running, or if you need help installing Python, please let me know or let one of the TAs know and we'll help you out and get that installed for you.